have a motion to open the August meeting of the Southampton Village Planning Board?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Welcome to the August 4th meeting of the Southampton Village Planning Board. If everybody would sign their cell phones, that would be great. We will begin with the first item on the agenda, which is a decision in the Michael and Annie Falk application for request for an extension.
And in the file is a resolution approving the extension for a third and final time to and including the February 14th meeting. If the application is not concluded by that time pursuant to the resolution, the applicant will have to refile an application. An affirmative vote on the motion would be to approve the extension to February 14th.
May I have a vote on this decision?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Extension.
extension for the Michael Falk and Annie Falk re-subdivision.
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The next is a request for an extension from LMR Associates. Letter received from the attorney for the applicant, Mr. Gilbert Flanagan, requesting said extension for a one-year period. This would be the first extension they've requested, Bo, so that would be pretty standard to just to approve
It
that,
would,
yes.
given the history of this application. I don't know when the when the first period of time expires.
October 3rd is when we approved it, so it would be 2 years from then.
All right, so let's adjourn this for all purposes to the September regular meeting, at which time I'll have a written resolution for the board.
Have a motion to adjourn this.
I'll make a motion at the owner's request to adjourn the LMR application till this September regular meeting.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on into the tennis courts. The Sillerman property, I think we discussed it at the work session. There were a few additional questions. Kathy, have you go over that, or Aldo?
I just wanted to know if they had addressed the issue with respect to the west side of the court where the driveway and the drop-off would be.
I think they agreed to put a fence on the plan. Is that what you're talking about, the safety issue?
Exactly. So that was the only concern that I had, the real concern that I had.
I reviewed the drainage, I'm satisfied with that.
So, Bo, would we vote on that, or you would make a
I
decision?
don't know why you can't vote on that right now. I mean, it's all documented, Kathy, right? I mean, the documents are clean. Kathy?
Yeah, I'm just checking one thing. There was a question about the lot coverage as well, and there was a comment from the work session minutes that I read that the coverage had not been added to the plan. Is that
No, they were on the survey. I think there was a separate survey
okay?
submitted, and it was on those.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
as
I think
long
it was okay.
as- Yeah, I agree.
So, Roy, there's no reason why you couldn't vote on that.
So may I have a motion to approve the tennis court application for the Sillerman residential property?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor? Aye.
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 Well, that motion passes. All right, moving into public hearing, the Southampton Hospital, we have a resolution approving the request of the Southampton Hospital.
And before the board in the file is a resolution approving the application to expand the building by a one-story addition to the area near the operating room, and also to enclose the 2 generators. This has already been approved by the board by voice resolution, so by voice vote. So this would be a motion to formally adopt the resolution in written form.
I'll make a motion to formally adopt the resolution in written form on the application of Southampton Hospital Corporation.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item would be the Pelosi Auto and Roller application. Mr. Gilmartin.
For the applicant, David Gilmartin Jr., Kyle Fritz, 50 Station Road, Watermill, New York. Since our, actually at our last public session, we submitted new plans. And those new plans, I know the board has been over, but for the sake of the public, I know is interested, have changed significantly. We're not asking for the expansion of the building, so it's going to be a rehabilitation of the current building. We're going to operate a coin-operated laundromat, which, as you know, is permitted under the code. It's a highway business zoning district. We're going to formalize the parking now. As you know, and if you've seen this site, it's not formalized. So I think it's a significant upgrade over what exists currently. And it'll be an operating, thriving business, and it's a permitted use in the highway business zoning district. Last time we were here, the board had a lot of questions about the septic system, and we have our septic engineer representative here tonight. He can come forward and answer those questions. Any other questions? Unfortunately, our architect had a conflict tonight and wasn't able to make it out, so we'll do the best we can answering the site plan questions, but we do have the septic engineer here tonight.
Do we have a copy of the plans?
Good evening. Jim Sharkey from Mackerel Filtration Systems. Questions?
Do you have the plans you want?
July 1st? Is that the latest? I don't think
Yeah.
so. What,
I think so.
Rudy, do you know what the latest plans were submitted? Was it July 1st?
It was the Monday before your last meeting, so it'll be July 1st.
Okay. I had a question on the process tanks.
Okay.
Is this something that's going out into a process tank and then back into the building?
Correct. The process, the process is that the wastewater is released from the wash machines and goes to an inside 3x3 tank where the lint is then pumped through the lint screens. The water is then sent out to equalization tanks where the water is constantly equalized through a pump process. That water is brought back in and now goes through a chemical process that will coagulate the solids, and that goes into those process tanks. And in there, the settling occurs, and then that water at that time is fairly clean. That is drawn back into the building and goes through a Opflex and carbon filtration system.
And that's going to be, this is a single-story building, no basement, right?
Correct.
So where are those tanks?
The exterior tanks,
Well, I see the exterior tanks are underground. There's tanks you say gets brought back in.
Right,
So the lint tanks and all these other tanks are in this building.
correct.
Okay. Are these the two tanks that are shown on here are not connected?
They're isolation, right, they're individual tanks.
So there's a line into one and then back out of that same
Right,
one.
there's a
in?
time factor involved in the settling. So to make up time, as one tank is settling, the other could be processing, and then that's finished. And so they're both running concurrently so that we can speed the time up.
So there's an in pipe and an out pipe in each
Correct.
tank. Okay.
Correct.
And then once it goes back there, then it goes into a gray water.
At that point, the water's clear. The water has been settled. The water is clear. It goes through what's called an Opflex oil removing system. It removes any remaining oils. Then goes through a granulated carbon system, which removes the remainder of detergents.
So so when does it go into the gray water sediment tanks?
I'm not sure what you mean by gray settlement
Well-
tanks. Well, let me go through the process again. It basically, it gets filtered through the lint filters first, then goes into the equalization tanks. That's what,
And that's what's being
gray
called the
water.
process tank on this?
Well, it's called, here we call it equalization tank. There's two of them, two equalization
I
tanks.
don't have anything that says equalization tank on my drawing.
Well, gray water,
Well, I got 2 tanks that say process tank, then I have
Right.
3 tanks that say gray water sediment tank.
right. That's the equalization tanks. The gray water settlement tank, big gray, would be the equalization.
So is this drawing what it actually is, or is this just sort of a,
Oh, no, this has been submitted to the DEC
okay.
for their approvals.
So can you just take it, Aldo, ST1? Well, I think these might not be, this says ST1 and ST1. I thought there was one that was submitted after this. That was ST1, ST2, ST3.
July 1. That's what the date is on, and everything.
Do you guys have ST1, ST2, ST3?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's got to be more of those in there
Two
someplace
just
then, right?
basically landscape. My ST2
This is-
is landscaping
And ST3 is lights?
December.
Yeah.
so everything that's, kind of what you're talking about is on ST1.
10/11. This is- Oh, that's not what it says. Anything after that. Right in the back.
Let's take a peek at your ST1. Julie, is there any extra copies that you know of?
I can give you my copy.
Okay. Well, this one says the same thing. Do you see where it says, yeah, take a look, see where it comes out, it says process tank?
Yes, that matches what we gave to the DEC, just, we call them equalization tanks, they're
Okay.
calling them gray water
Okay.
tanks, same thing. But basically, the water gets filtered, all the lint and solids are removed inside. It goes out to these gray water sediment tanks, which is equalization.
Right, so there's 3 of those.
There's actually 2, the other's a sludge.
Okay.
And basically, the water is equalized to equal the pH and equal the consistency. Then it comes in and is mixed with a chemical coagulant. And there it goes out into those process tanks or the settling tanks. And the sediment settles to the bottom and the clean water is left at the top. That is pumped back in. It goes through, again, our Opflex and carbon system for final treatment.
Right. What I'm most concerned about is that configuration that's on this plan, does that match what you've
Yes.
submitted to
Yes. they're right here.
the health department?
Yeah, this is the copy of the DEC
Okay.
actual permit.
Have you received the permit from it?
Well, at this point, they're waiting for us to build it. There's been no, well, there's
Have
been
they
no,
approved the plans?
yes.
This is not their approval, is it?
It's not
This is the
here.
engineer's report we submitted.
This is,
Do you have a,
Did that letter saying that everything
Must
process?
be in limbo someplace, because I'm sure they gave more than.
maybe somebody was down looking at it and
Yeah.
took it out.
They usually send a letter saying that the application's been received and is reviewed, and now they're just waiting.
Just
Happens
the
at this point.
inside.
Don't you get a permit to start construction?
Actually, it's a letter to begin construction. They issue the permit once it's been built and inspected.
That would be an operating permit in my mind.
Well,
but
this is just how they do it. I mean,
I understand. I'm just
you know,
trying to get
yeah.
understand what they are doing. So there's no such thing as a permit that
There's a draft
allows you,
permit. There's probably a draft permit,
that allows you to start construction.
yes.
And has that been issued yet?
No.
No, I just want to make sure that the configuration on here is the same.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
I'd like to get a copy.
the health department's going to either approve it or not approve it.
What happens to the sludges that you generate?
Okay, the sludge goes into a sludge tank and is removed by a licensed hauler.
Oh, okay.
Depends on the volume, but usually we'd like to do once a month on the average.
That includes the carbon, the lint.
Carbon's usually changed out once a month by the same hauler. They'll come in and they'll take the carbon out of the tanks, put fresh carbon in. At the same time, they remove the sludge. We actually have a fully operational system over in Farmingville.
Oh, you do?
Yes, and we've got over
Where in Farmington?
on Horse Block Road.
You have the name of it?
Yes, it's the Laundry Palace. This is a much larger system than the one we're proposing for here. But I was able, I also brought some laboratory data that we've had success with this system. The DEC is watching this very carefully. I speak to them on a once a week basis,
Okay.
but it's been meeting the requirements.
Kathy, could you pass those plans back up to me? No, the ones over here on the table there. You guys, those are yours, right?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
I'm gonna hit the microphone.
Oh, yeah, right.
So what's the gallonage per day the speedies permit is being issued for?
I believe we
Those are
had this
interior.
one,
Machines.
it's going to 30, almost 32,000 a day. That's the proposed, that's if every wash machine is running. We calculate it using a formula put forth by the Board of Health back in the 70s that, for instance, a 25 machine will generate 50 gallons at 10 washes a day, will do 12,000 a day. A 40-pound machine, there'd be 20 of them at 70 gallons each times 10 turns a day would be 14,000 gallons. And then they've got 5 60-pound machines at 105 gallons each at 10 times a day. We've a little more than 5,000 gallons. We found that that formula is pretty accurate. What happens if we build it and it exceeds, or then we have to file an as-built. But we've never had a problem with that formula. But I usually calculate at least 20% covering Sunday. The Sunday you'll always do a little more, and Monday you'll do a little less. But on the average, it's about 31,000 a day.
And what hours did you anticipate?
Well, Sunday usually in the laundry industry is a busier day. So it could do 20% more. That's why when I calculate, I always add
So how many
20%.
hours per day did you anticipate?
Well, again, it's a fluctuating day. You could have a big run in the morning, and then nothing happening for 2 hours, then a big rush before noon. It really is dependent on the area and weather. Heavy duty rain will slow business down, but like I said, we've been using that formula for 20 years now, and it's pretty accurate.
Facilities in the Catherine area. The water well that's done.
It's in this report. Because they have to identify it, the engineer has to identify it in the application, the NY2C. So again, nothing has come up, they've had this application since November, and usually within the first 60 days, they usually let us know if there's a discrepancy or something not right in the report, or a problem with the report, and we've heard nothing from them since.
We haven't received any comments back on that.
No,
Regarding
at this point, no
possible
comments means that it's moving forward.
Do you have any idea when you're going to get an approval?
Well, technically, it is approved, because we've submitted this, 100 times. It's the same report. So basically, it's just, at this point, there's a draft permit, and then what'll happen is when we build it, they'll come for an inspection, and then at that point, it'll be on the books, so to speak.
And who's your contact at the health department?
Kathy Haas?
And DEC?
Yes. Phone number is 631.
No, who's the person at the DEC that you're dealing with?
That's Kathy Haas.
Oh, and what about the health department?
I don't deal with the health department.
Okay,
The DEC has lead agency on that.
right.
Do you want her number?
Yep.
444-0427.
Okay. Thanks. Good.
Anything further, Mr. Gilmartin?
I understand it's a public hearing, so hear from the public and I'll
Right.
respond.
Would anyone in the audience care to address the board?
20 feet from this.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bragman, and 15 Railroad Avenue, East Hampton, New York. I've appeared before you a few times. I just got these plans tonight, unfortunately, and have not had a chance to look over the plans that were just, I guess, produced for the first time tonight.
We had them at the work
Oh,
session.
you had them at the work session. Well, I haven't had a chance to see them. I'd like to look them over, particularly given the estimates of what the effluent is that they're talking about pumping out of here, which is pretty intense water usage of 32,000 gallons a day. I don't know whether the plans, it sounded from the comments I just heard that is an estimate of the gallon per day effluent from this use, which suggested to me that we still don't have a plan that tells you how many machines are going to be put into this building. I don't know whether I'm correct on that or not, because I just got the plans today, but I think that's certainly information that the board should have and should not be operating on an estimated gallon flow from the use. I'd also like to compare some of the engineering data and the effluent that they were just discussing with some of the SEQRA requirement to see if, in fact, this is a Type 2 action as the applicant has contended. It just seems like a very intense amount of water. I also didn't understand the answer we just got about the well, because I was also checking with Suffolk County Department of Health Services, and I know that there are a couple of wells in the vicinity of this use, and I think that's information that the board should have before it proceeds. I think we should know exactly how far away the wells are, and particularly what the zone of capture is on a well. The zone of capture is the area from which it draws water. You've got a huge amount of effluent being produced by this proposed use, and I think it's only prudent to know exactly where the wells are and what the zone of capture is, and whether there's any possibility that this effluent will affect that zone of capture. I'm also a little concerned about whether or not there's been any due diligence on the property condition in terms of any contamination on the property, because it was used for years as a laundry plant, and it would not be unheard of that that kind of a use would use solvents or other volatile organic chemicals. And I think it would be also prudent of the board, before it acts, to at least get some kind of an appraisal, an assessment of whether there is a problem on the site, given the fact that it has a history of a use that is of a type that does use chemicals of those types. I was looking at the plans, doing my best. I didn't bring a scale with me today, but one of the problems that I raised in a letter that I sent to you as long ago as December had to do with the prior variance that granted the parking approval for the building. And it appears to me that this plan does not fix the problem that I was talking to the board about in my December letter, namely that they've reconfigured the parking and some other structures, and I believe, from just eyeballing it, using the scale on the plans that Mr. Gilmartin was gracious enough to give me just now, that they're not in compliance with the buffer setback that the zoning board granted way back when it granted the variance. And that's even after they moved the zoning boundary, even despite the fact I know it was moved to the to the east, I'm sorry. I think it's to the east. Yeah, to the east. But the problem on the first plan that they came forward with was not the size of the building, although that was a problem, but there was a compliance problem with the parking plan that they presented, because they proposed structures that were within a required buffer area. And it looks to me, just by eyeballing it from the line between the zoning districts, which is marked here on the on the site plan that they have not corrected that problem. They still have structures in an area where they're not permitted to have structures. I would refer the board to my December letter in which I enclosed a survey, and I'd actually marked it in color so you could see the area that the prior zoning board approval designated as a buffer area. It looks to me like they've got structures in there. So I guess my request tonight would be that you keep the record open for some time. I'd like to submit much more detailed comments than I can give you tonight on the engineering plan. I'd like to put in writing my questions about the proximity of Suffolk County Water Authority wells and their zone of capture. I'd like to reiterate the parking issue that I saw before, and I'd like to go through some of the SECRA requirements because despite the fact that, at least as the law stands right now, until and unless a judge orders otherwise, which could happen, that this is a permitted use, that doesn't mean that it's environmentally, it's free of the potential for serious adverse impacts. And I'd like to be able to compare information that was just presented, that I just have seen tonight for the first time, the engineering plan in particular, against the SECRA requirements. If I can, Mr. Gilmartin, as I said, was kind enough to give me a complete set of plans, which is helpful. I'd also like to get, if I could, and I'd be happy to pay for it if I have to, a copy of those engineering plans that were just pulled out and which the board has, so that I don't get a Xerox copy and I can put a scale down on and know what the distances are.
You can get all this stuff from the building department.
Yeah, I know, but I'm getting Xerox copies from them, and sometimes they don't scale after they've Xeroxed. I'd like to get a scalable copy. So I'd ask the applicant if he has an extra, if he could give me one of those as well. But I would ask you to keep the record open. I think there's some factual issues, and I think you need some more information before you can just close this hearing and issue a decision. Thank you.
Further comment?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Fred Thiel, and I am an attorney with the firm of Toomey Latham and Shea et al., with offices at 33 2nd Street in Riverhead. And I'm here tonight representing Wesley Olko, who is owns 2 adjoining properties to the subject property that is the subject of tonight's hearing. Mr. Olko retained me for this matter earlier today, and so needless to say, I haven't had a chance to thoroughly look through all of the details of this application, but I do thank Mr. Gilmartin for also giving me a copy of the plan. My sole request tonight is very similar to Mr. Bragman's, and that is simply a request that this matter be continued so that my client would have the opportunity to present more substantive remarks with regard to the proposal. And other than that, that is really my request for this evening. And I hope, as Jeff mentioned, that you can keep the hearing open so that we can provide the board with our information also. Thank you.
Just quickly, first, I don't have any objection to keeping it open and letting everybody get a good look at these things. We did submit floor plans. I'll try and get every set of plans that we have. I don't have them with me, to both Mr. Thiel.
Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
I was going to get plans to my adversaries in this case as soon as I can. The other thing, just quickly on Mr. Bragman's comment, our parking lot does meet the setback. If you look at the zoning board decision from '77, it does meet that. I'll also give Mr. Bragman a copy of the survey, which demonstrates that clearly. But I don't think that that's going to be an issue here. But we have no objection to the record remaining open.
Okay, thank you.
Wanted to address a couple of items that came up on the aquifer, the wells. As part of the permit process, we have to identify the companies that are within a 3-mile radius of the laundromat who are notified of this laundromat, proposed laundromat going in, and the DEC has a 30-day period before they issue the permit that anybody can come and look at the file, get comments, and if these purveyors have any issues with their wells and being contaminated by the laundromat, at that time they can put a formal protest or something of that nature on file. Also, getting in regards to the, sorry, there was something else I wanted two things I wanted to address. The wells, the DEC has mandated that all laundromats now put in monitoring wells. And that is, of course, a well that goes into the groundwater and is monitored monthly. The DEC actually shut a laundromat down a year and a half ago, which prompted me to get involved to come up with this new system. But it was a 100-washer laundromat that they actually shut down. They just said, you're out of business. They found detergent in the wells. And so the DEC has really stepped up and is really monitoring these after it's installed. So if there's ever an issue of the system failing above ground, it's going to show up below ground, and the DEC will put an end to it.
Do you have a problem? I know there was talk of some intellectual property way back. Is this DEC application available to everyone?
It will be if, like I said, during that 30 days. I mean, I really haven't got a problem if we get a confidentiality agreement, just as long as there's nothing really. Most of my materials are proprietary, so there's nothing really anybody can take.
Okay.
So before there was, but now there's not.
Can you make sure that we get the location of this sampling well?
Yes.
On our, and does your calcs are showing that there's 32,000 gallons of outflow a day?
32,000 gallons a day is a laundromat owner's dream. This is like if every washing machine ran all day long, 7 days a week. This is the maximum it would probably produce.
And that's what's in the application.
That's what's in the application. We've never had anybody go over. You know, we've had laundromats that propose 9,000 gallons a day up to 80,000 gallons a day, and the 80,000 gallons never happens. The Farmingville is rated for 65,000 gallons. They're doing 12 to 15 a day.
And now so have you coordinated with Charles Kuhn on how many leaching pools he needs?
Yes, him and my engineering firm and his office has made sure everything is, whatever is on his plan is on the plan we submitted to the DEC.
Because we're showing 6 leaching pools, but no other data on what they are. And then on another page, it says that they're 25-foot max, but for the depth, see the plan, and that's not on there. So if you can make sure that those leaching pools get identified as to exactly what they are, because we can't really check the gallonage, the leaching on it until...
Well, the engineer calculates the sidewall of each leaching tank to address how much to accept per day. He's got them at 10 foot by 25 foot deep. And it should be on here.
Well, we have a typical leaching pool that says 25-foot max, but then there's another note that says ring depth varies, see plan. Well, but there's nothing on the plan. I'm just saying,
okay.
We just need it on there.
Right. He's calling for 10 gallons per day per square foot of sidewall area of each leaching tank. 3768 square feet times 10 gallons. So he's actually has drainage for 37,600 gallons a day. So again, that's the 20% I like to put in there. Mm-hmm. Always have, the Sunday day, because you're going to get a little more on Sunday and a little less. So I like to get that Sunday as being the target
Well, that's
date.
okay. I just want it on this plan.
The plan you have?
This Charles Kuhn plan, because we don't have that yet.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Further comment?
Yeah. My name is Harry Nelson. I own South Fork Realty, which is the property next door. Might be premature in the question I'm asking, but I would just like to know what the days and the hours of operation would be, and if there are any restrictions that would come into play here. Again, I don't know if this is the right time, but just to have it known. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what they're planning to do, but hopefully you guys will let us know at some point.
I'll find out.
Yeah. Further comment? Mr. Bragman?
Just forgot something reminded me of this, if I may. I'm Jeff Bragman again. Could I get a DEC application number? Does the board have that, or does the applicant have it? It would make it easier to track.
Well, in view of the fact that the applicant has no objections to continuing the public hearing, I would think that we'd make a motion to extend this to the, for another month.
Adjourn for all purposes.
to September.
And do we have that date? Are we the 3rd?
I think we decided it's
have
going
to,
to be the 3rd, yeah. That's what we got to vote on it.
Is that Tuesday?
Right. Yeah.
It's Tuesday.
So Steve, you want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn for all purposes. The was it the IOSO enroller application
To
to the next scheduled
regular meeting.
regular meeting.
Second?
I can second
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry, I'll second
All in
it.
favor?
Aye.
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 No, it would be helpful if we did get the DEC permit number, if he has it.
I don't have it with me, but Kathy Haas would have that.
Thank you.
Okay. In the subdivision review, do we have anything further on OIA?
There's a reference to a letter requesting adjournment, so I don't know if that's in the file. Pam,
I'm sorry, what?
WIA, is there a letter in the file from Mr. Bennett for adjournment?
I'm sorry. Yes. He wants to adjourn until next month.
All right.
Was that Pelosi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No,
Yes, that was this one.
that's OAA.
Jesus, it's just a laundromat. That's it. Holy jeez.
Motion to grant the request of the applicant to adjourn for all purposes the WIA Association application to the regular meeting in September 2013.
So moved.
First, second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Didn't get to
Aye.
be a bod this week, so we'll do it for next month.
Okay.
The Gerardo Rosengarten application.
Good evening, Mary Jane Assato, Burke Flanagan Assato, 21 South Main Street for the applicant. I was going to be requesting, and I am requesting, whether the board would schedule this for a public hearing, in mind that you have a work session, as well as, I mean, that's a month away, September 3rd. Mr. Robinson was kind enough to give me a call this morning, and I know that he has open issues, but I thought in that month's time we certainly could make concerted efforts to address them. And certainly the fact that if you have a public hearing doesn't mean that you can't keep it open until all of the issues are addressed because of the time frame. I know that you may want to have, Mr. Robinson has comments, but I thought that would be a way to move forward, obviously, because if we don't schedule a public hearing tonight, we're into the earliest that could be done is just September hearing, which would take this into October.
what are your open issues?
Well, first of all, several open issues. One is that I've done my best. I've visited the site, tried to get in touch with Mr. Foster to determine actually factually what happened, but there's no sufficiency of facts in the file to my satisfaction to know what's actually transpired with this application. The board had written a memo before, or I had written a memo to the board requesting that this be referred to the Board of Appeals. So Mary Jane, what happened at the Board of Appeals?
It was adjourned.
Well, what's the status of it now?
It's on for this month's meeting.
All right.
Rick, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but his position is that this is a boundary line modification and not a ZBA matter. You can confirm that with him directly. I don't want to speak for him, but that is his legal opinion, to my understanding and knowledge.
And I would have to say that as of this morning, I read the application to the Board of Appeals, and I would basically concur with that. But the applicant was requested to go to the Board of Appeals to seek a variance, not a lot line modification.
Well, it was published, if you looked at the publication, for variances. I mean, we did not file that application, but we had dialogue with the ZBA office, and if you look at the publication, it says it's asking for side yard, you know, the various relief to be able to do this without a boundary line. I think that what it is they were indicating, well, we've applied for, I mean, convoluted as it is, there have been discussions, and the position is, well, you can alleviate your practical difficulty and whatever unnecessary hardship by a boundary line modification, and no variance is required. If you are tonight saying to us that, and I don't know, that's why I've asked, can you schedule it for a public hearing so that we can sort of have this dialogue further in the next month before the work session and before the next hearing date for the ZBA to see if we can resolve these things. Certainly it doesn't hurt, because at that point you don't have to close the hearing and we can continue and we can still work on this between Rick, you, and my partner, and the applicant.
I haven't heard from Rick in a call directly, so I don't know where that goes. But again, I've got a lot of issues with the facts of how this has arisen. As I mentioned,
John wasn't the person that was on the building. John wasn't present. It's Chris Talbot that was the dialogue between the client and the architect and the engineer. So, but I believe at the work session, and I've been briefed, is that the boundary line modification, I know that you want to get down to the facts of how did this happen, the construction commencing. We've acknowledged that the construction commenced without a building permit. The file was complete, but there was no building permit issued. The client acknowledges that. We're not trying to say that, that there was a building permit. And obviously, between the various parties, an ARB approval is not a building permit. We've gone through that. It's been conceded. That would be more of a weighing and balancing if you're trying to say self-created hardship for a variance case, but we're not asking for a variance. And for us to resolve those issues, we can resolve those issues, and I do want to address your concerns and have opportunity to speak to Chris or John, as well as dialogue with your colleague and Gil. But that can be done during the time frame. If we schedule a public hearing, that doesn't mean that you're going to grant it or even say you have jurisdiction at that point. It's just a matter of the publication requirements. You can at least then see if there's any public interest in this, and you can keep that open for as long as you need to get your answers, the answers to your satisfaction. Gil and the applicant would like this scheduled so that at least we're not having to, it may be that those questions are answered 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, or they're not answered by your next hearing. But if we're able to answer those, then there's another month. So we actually submit to you respectfully that you're not giving anything away by scheduling a public hearing, because you can hold it open and have all of your issues until, your issues are resolved.
Well, I've got issues, and again, I think that this is a precedent-setting matter. As I mentioned to you today,
one thing that's from a practical point of view is that the applicant appears to have blocked himself or blocked the property from emergency services from the backyard. On the north side of the house, there's a substantial number of smallish, what I would call trees, but that effectively blocks the north side of the approach. And with this, what I'm going to call underground patio or below ground patio, that if the request as submitted to the board were granted, would put the property line right at the south edge of this sunken patio. And there's no way to get there for emergency people or anybody into the backyard.
You raised that with me, and I believe that Gil has addressed that at least, and there are several ways. One, I spoke to Gil after I spoke to you, and
I don't think it's not been addressed so far in this application.
No. What I'm saying is, what I said to you is, one, this is a back-to-back lot. Obviously, there's frontage on more than one street. So,
not this lot.
So if you wanted, I said you can always grant, if that is a concern. You would indicate to me that you'd spoken to John Foster, and maybe I misunderstood you, that he said that patio was an issue with him. Gil says to me he had spoken to John, and he said to me, and Gil said to me point blank, John told me that was not an issue. Regardless, let's say that the board finds it's an issue for emergency ingress and egress. I said to you, you can condition it on a perpetual easement over the other property. That is not a problem. And so you can condition that as part of your approval.
Well, we know that.
So.
But the point is that somebody wants a public hearing for all these issues that are still arising, and that's the problem I have. It's very nice to say just have a public hearing and then condition all these things, but the trouble is when it gets to a public hearing, then it's, well, how fast can we close the public hearing down and get a decision? And these things are still coming up, and I don't see why it's the position of this board to have to point out that a planning board is being asked to grant a subdivision creating a piece of property that has no access for emergency services to the backyard. That shouldn't be the duty of this board.
Well, during the public hearing, I believe
why
that
don't we
issues
just do
are
this
raised.
before the public hearing?
So, there's no one way. I'm not saying that you have to schedule a public hearing. I submitted a request saying that these things can happen. We can have dialogue, and I'm putting it on the record that I'm not going to come and say to you, or I will tell my partner, well, you got to close the public hearing. In other words, I agree with you. We can address this before the public hearing. It's one way or the other. There's no rule to be said, but things come up in the public hearing on applications all the time, even after you schedule it. So having a public hearing doesn't foreclose issues to be raised.
Policy of the board to have Nelson Pope and Voorhees review this, and I don't think Kathy has had the opportunity before this is waived off by staff to go to a public hearing. And that's really where this application is. The fact that Kathy's been away, obviously it hasn't helped. I understand your client wants to move forward with this. I've tried the best I can in this last several weeks to find out the information I need, and don't have it all. It's not like this board is attempting to thwart this or delay it. It's just that I don't feel comfortable in saying there should be a public hearing. Kathy may have a different opinion, and the board may have a different opinion. But that's my counsel and commentary to the board.
Sure.
Kathy, have you had a chance to review this?
I have reviewed it, and I have concerns, and I've had concerns all along.
Well,
So,
if I may, I'm an applicant, obviously. I sent the letter out. That letter was as honest I could be. I showed that letter to the building department. John Forster was not there, he was out ill. I showed it to Chris. He approved the letter as factual. And as far as the items that you just brought up, which were not brought up before by the building department or by anybody else,
That's my point.
No, I understand. I understand your point. And as far as that's concerned, I will address and have addressed that in the sense that I will put an easement in from Moses Lane over the lot that I own to the back and the side of the property that I also own. I mean, when you say this is, groundbreaking or
Precedent.
Precedent
precedent,
setting.
okay. When you say it's a precedent, I own both properties. Both properties have two frontages on two separate streets.
This property does not have frontage on.
No, not when I say both, I meant combined.
Yeah,
I have
brought
frontage on
mine with
Moses.
me. You can look at
Is there
this.
another one in the file?
I'm sure there's one.
Moses,
You can look at that.
I have an entrance on Moses and an entrance on Pelham. The connection of those two properties can have an easement without affecting either property, a fire access, if you will, so that both properties have that protection. Right now, one property is not developed at all. It's an open lot. So, and you bring up a very good point, and I'm not arguing that point. I just actually want to make it very clear, though, to this board, that the letter that I said, that I sent was factual. I don't want anyone to say it wasn't factual, because that's besmirching my name, all right? I didn't send that letter in any way other than having addressed what I believe before you brought up that issue, all the issues, and I got the building department to read the letter before I sent it to you. I wanted to make sure that my facts were correct. So, anyone saying anything else, I will.
Mr. Drago, first of all, it's not personal, sir.
No, it's not about personal.
Let me finish. Secondly, if this board, if you're saying that Mr. Talbot reviewed it, well, normally this board accepts only communications from the building inspector himself. That would be Mr. Foster.
Okay.
Thirdly, if this board does accept communications from the building department, it's in writing, because that documents the file. In a year from now, if somebody reviews this, they're not going to see this tape of this meeting to say that you had said
This letter,
Chris Talbot approved it. We need a letter from the building inspector saying that they had read the letter and they agree with it, or stating what other subtleties they might wish to comment on that they would like to clarify.
I didn't say this was personal. What I said was, my name is personal to me. If I send a letter to every member of the board, that's because the facts are correct and they were checked.
Right. Well,
Now,
that,
John Forster, okay, and I have a good relationship with John Forster, because I've built houses in the area and gone through John Forster's, the building department before. If that has to be done in a letter from John Forster, that's fine. I don't know what John Forster said to you or anybody else, because I haven't spoken to John Forster since the last planning board, right? Now, I don't even know, as an example right now, because we are subject to, from your standpoint, a variance. My understanding of the direction of the board was that you were supposed to speak to Rick to determine, if you will, was this the issue? Now, I don't know. Did you speak to Rick?
sir, I wasn't supposed to speak to anybody. If there's an application pending in front of the board, Rick can call me as much as I can call Rick. I have not spoken with Rick since the last meeting.
Okay, I'm under the impression, because I was here,
I was too.
okay, and there's a record of that. I believe that the board asked to speak to Rick. Now, it may have been the other way around, but the two of you have not talked since the last board meeting.
Correct.
This doesn't affect truly anybody but me and my workers, as I described in that letter. So, I mean, it's a back and forth for me, because I'm listening to it, and I took the road to the variance primarily because I was trying to kind of like hedge my bet, because I didn't know which way it was going.
Well, this board basically had requested that you do that.
No, I actually, well, maybe the first one. The second meeting, I believe they asked for you and Rick to talk.
No, that's not the way this unfolded.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's the way I remember it.
Okay, I
And
appreciate
other way,
that you have your
that's
opinion of it,
just
but
two
I'm saying
people
I had written a memorandum earlier to this board saying that I did not favor this application coming before a planning board.
No, but that was, I'm not arguing that. That was stated at the first planning board meeting, and actually caught my engineer at the time, because I had not hired Gil Flanagan, who I'd used for all my dealings in Southampton. But my engineer came and...
And by the way, this is not a he said, she said submission,
No,
sir.
I understand that.
It is what it is. I haven't had a chance to speak to Rick. Rick hasn't called me. I've been to your property. I've seen it. I've
Okay.
inquired to Mr. Foster, who's not been available other than today, and it was only by coincidence that I did catch him.
Okay.
And all I'm saying to you and everybody else is, I'm not satisfied that there are enough facts documented yet to consider a public hearing. And part of that is, when you can sit there and say, well, you own the property to the south of this, and you can grant a public or an easement, how does one, in the middle of an emergency, in the middle of a cold, dark night, tell the ambulance people you've got to go around the corner to get access to the backyard?
Right.
And more importantly,
Yeah, yeah.
how is that ever enforced? There's not enough staff or personnel in any village to go over to your properties once a year and make sure that there's a sign or there's no vegetation in an easement or enough paving on a soggy, thawed morning to get an emergency vehicle in there. So there's a lot of practical issues that I see with
And
something
there
like
would be a
that.
lot of liability for me if in
And the
fact there was
village,
not
and the
paid.
village, yes, and the village if it can't get services in. Because the first thing that another owner or a tenant might say is, well, the planning board approved this and it's not particularly well planned out. And let me
Oh, I don't-
finish.
oh, I
Let
don't
me
want-
finish. And therefore, there's a problem. And that's what a planning board is trying to do, different, sir, than the Board of Appeals. And that's what I've said. A Board of Appeals has the history and the daily workings, the monthly workings of talking to building inspectors from whom an appeal would be taken, to talk to this dialogue and find out how to deal with these conditions and practicalities. The planning board could do it, but we're not really geared up for this kind of an assessment of a problem. And that's all I've tried to say.
Okay, and I'm sorry if I'm being argumentative, because I'm not trying to be.
Okay.
Just
We're
stating
trying
my
to
case.
process this as fast as we can with as much consideration as everybody involved. It's a unique situation. It is certainly unique that you own the two adjoining properties and can alleviate this situation by the means of a re-subdivision. But it's unique to us. We consider it precedent setting. Hopefully there's not another one out there, but there might be, who knows. And I said, I want to make sure that things are documented correctly and there's a foundation laid in the file for this so that anybody reviewing this in the future can say, this was unique and it's not a precedent for something else. And just to simply say, we need to start public hearings and work about this later, to me, is not the best way to do it.
Okay, I understand
Appreciate
that.
it delays you a month,
No, it's
but if we
strictly,
can get everything done between now and then, we can get ready for the public hearing.
I have learned counsel. I
And she's
feel
very
represented.
competent, and
I
Gil is
know.
very competent.
I got up here strictly because I heard that there was something said about that letter that was incorrect.
I don't know
wanted to-
whether it's correct or not. All I can say is I'm trying to
I'm
investigate
clearing
it.
my name, and I'm standing by it because I wrote it.
Right.
And that's
Thank you.
basically it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We're adjourned to the next hearing? Or,
Is that what you like?
well, I respectfully requested a public hearing, but I don't, obviously your counsel is advising against it.
I will make a motion to adjourn it for all purposes until the next meeting, if that works with you.
Well,
I think you have to request it.
I consent
Okay.
to that.
Okay. So moved?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, yeah, I guess.
May I ask, because I was a little bit late, because I was coming from the airport, did you grant the extension for fall?
Yes, I have a copy for you.
Okay, all right. And the tennis court?
Yeah,
Thank you.
that got approved, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
It is when three's standing there.
Thank you.
Susan Lillywhite, 68 Job's Lane. There was some drawings, preliminary drawings presented at the work session, which we reviewed. There was many questions which we had, but in view of the fact that there is no
Kathy,
applicant or
yeah, well,
anything
Kathy
here.
hasn't had a chance to review them, so until they file their report.
And there's no one here from the applicant to advance it, so
Yeah.
we should
for all
adjourn this for all
purposes.
purposes.
There's one thing that I can say is that the EAF that they did prepare was so badly done. I shouldn't say it like that, I guess. It was incomplete and in many cases inaccurate. So mostly the incomplete stuff, I believe, should be sent back to the applicant to finish and, to fill in the details, because this technically is an unlisted action in a National Historic District area, so that puts it over to a type 1 action. The planning board is the only involved agency, so we've dealt with that in a, without doing this, we can't do a coordinated review, but we can do a full EAF and, review the impact, so,
Okay.
I would,
Well, the ARB may be involved also, but I don't know. I think there were alterations to the side of the building,
To the
windows,
side
et
of the
cetera, et cetera,
building,
so
yeah.
that would-
There's a bay
Okay.
window proposed, I think, or is that existing?
No,
That was
that's
proposed.
proposed.
okay. So I guess we could
So
do it
the-
as a
yeah.
circulated to the
Mhm.
ARB in that case then.
All right. I'll make a motion at the request of the applicant to adjourn the Susan Lillywhite application until the next scheduled meeting in September.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In pre-submissions, we have the PEP2 Holdings application.
Good evening. For the applicant, David Gilmartin Jr., Farrell Fritz, 50 Station Road, Watermill. I have site plans. It's actually a dual application. It's a site plan and subdivision. In February, we got a variance from the zoning board. While we have the area, we didn't have the lot width. We got the variance for the lot width, so now we're going to move forward with the subdivision of the property and a site plan. I'm not sure if you want the subdivision plan now, but I do have that. I can hand it forward, and I have a site plan. Copies of the site plan, so whatever your pleasure.
Okay. Have they been submitted yet
No.
to us? All right, well, we can stamp them in now, right? Yep.
Thank you very much.
The property is located on David White's Lane. It's in the LI zoning district. Currently, there is a single-family dwelling, and then the PDP is Power Equipment Plus rental, machine rental. And you'll see on the site plan, the proposed buildings that PDP is looking to put in. Cross accessibility, parking can be shared.
You want one of these?
Yeah, we did.
Let me get the set.
Is this the same one?
You seem to have.
Subdivision.
Here's a whole set.
Yeah, there's
Here's
just,
a
is
whole
there just
set.
two, right?
There's three.
Oh, there's three?
No, there's two maps.
There's,
Site plan map and a subdivision map.
right.
There's two.
Okay, wait a minute. I gave away the stamp.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, this is subdivision.
What do you have?
Current site plan.
There's two.
There's only two.
And then here's the,
No, no.
that's the subdivision one?
He
We
met
haven't
the
seen this
site
yet.
plan approval that he got. You took a look at it.
And everybody's got everything on it.
But he did do those.
Is this Brian Marangola's house?
No, no, Brian Marangola is to the north of us,
Okay,
north of Lot 1.
okay.
This is where the mower shop is.
Mhm.
Power Equipment Plus, it's a rental, equipment rental.
Something about a house being there? It's a residential structure?
Yeah, there's a two-story house.
Two-story
in there.
house, you see on the,
Okay, it's being used as a house?
I believe so, yes. And obviously, it'll be removed.
You're subdividing this into these two parcels?
Correct.
You're gonna be under different ownerships?
We haven't talked, and they're currently on the same ownership. We may or may not discuss that.
Collecting drainage from the two parcels, and they're kind of split between them. What happens if you sell one and not the other, or vice versa?
I think we'd have to do easements and covenants that would cover that situation. There's going to be cross-access easements here, so we do a drainage easement.
So this is what, to split one residential lot off? I don't, what is the zone?
No, it's going to be this LI, light industrial.
So
It's gonna be
two LIs?
Two LIs.
Yeah, that's this here now. So they're gonna split like this, goes down, and put up another building similar to
Okay,
this.
so this is what Lisa mentioned here, then?
Correct.
Okay.
We haven't put it on.
Sorry.
Rattling the cage, you know?
Used to be a police station.
Okay.
That's what they did.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so that was your.
What's the proposed building going to be, storage or
It'll be a separately used light industrial lot, and it'll be consistent with the light industrial. His plans right now have two separate businesses. He'll lease one out and then use one himself. What his plan is to build the building on lot number 2, while in lot number 1, move in there, and then construct
and do the
another.
same thing? Mhm.
And that's something to consider, is that if this drainage.
That's supposed to be for the
system hasn't
file?
been put in,
From
I
Kathy?
want to consider having it thought of for the future development rather than.
Have each side take care of its own.
Yeah.
You don't have to get easements.
That's what Squires Holden was supposed to do, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
raise that
okay,
issue.
that makes sense.
I can understand the easement if you want to in terms of the parking, but,
Right.
So they should be designed really for this building.
yeah.
Are there any variances required?
Designed for this.
We have a variance, the lot width variance, and we got that covered.
Yeah.
So other than that, no.
Easements with it.
And then the intent is, once he moves into this new proposed building, he's gonna remove the other one and do something similar to the other side?
I'm looking at it, and he has portion of existing building to remain. So the original application that I saw had another building in there.
Must be the little building to the south of this.
That's.
Yeah, it's got, if you look on the,
The north.
if you look on the subdivision map, Rooney, it shows it's got another little piece that comes
Yeah.
towards lot 2 on an L.
Wait, he's taken that out.
Yeah.
The building that I saw on the first proposal, and this was changed, was
Remember this thing?
about, I want to say 5,000 square feet, and this one's 1,800, so I don't,
Right.
if that's his intent now, it's different than,
Why would you want to set?
He gets rid of that little L and he just
Thank you
takes
anyway.
that.
It seems to me the building department is also there looking at a lot of items that were cleaned up and so forth. Has that been done, or is it still?
it's my understanding, and Power Equipment Plus, the company that bought it, got an updated CO from the prior owner, Charlie Versace, so they had been out there and gave an updated CO, so they didn't have any problems. This, the basis of the variance request and the grant, I suspect, was the mess that was there, that was existing, that was gonna be cleaned up, and you're gonna get 2 clean-looking buildings with a nice landscaping plan.
One of the things that is shown on the photo is a lot of storage back in here.
That's all coming out. I mean, he's gonna clean this up. We have the 50-foot transition buffer that this board put in. I'm not sure if he's into that.
That's in it, sure.
Well, that'll all come out. this is gonna be 2 buildings. All of that excess stuff that exists there is gonna
One
be.
of the stage is this staying, this is coming out, and you got a new building coming in.
Right, correct.
So this was a condition of his original site plan back in 2006, right? The transition buffer, so
Right.
that hasn't been planted yet.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know when this aerial was
This is
taken.
2010, and then there's a 2012 I gave you.
We put in the
Right
file.
after Sandy. Oh, wait. I think I have it.
2012.
They're not very clear, but they're no, so maybe.
Doesn't look like a big
Yeah.
change.
Same.
But, I mean, I don't know, I don't know.
It's hard to tell. from
Always
that.
on,
Yeah.
when they put the lines on these maps, on these aerials, they're never scalable, right? So, someone once explained to me that it was the circumference, that the Earth is round, so you can't stick something on it, it's off by. So I don't know, it looks like there is vegetation back there, I don't know where it is, but as part of this application, we'll say we revegetate, it's a new owner.
Actually, the earth is not round, it's kind of squashed.
Those flat.
So you may be gaining instead of losing.
No, the
I mean, I don't
question-
see
almost
an issue.
the
This is the only
question
light industrial area we got
we-
left,
we
you know?
Look at the plantings that were proposed back in then and, you know, reevaluate that as well.
That's fine.
I think that that should be part of the overall plan, looking at that. And how does that work when you're talking about having a paved area right next to it? So it's different.
And then Rudy, did you say what, after he builds this building and moves into it, what is he's gonna try to do the same thing on the other lot?
Well, yeah, I have to talk to him about that. That may not be correct, because it looks like he's proposing a much smaller building now. I don't know what in his
I
plans.
think this is he's taking off a portion of the existing building.
Right.
But-
The plan that went into the zoning board to show him what it was gonna be had a much larger structure there. So when I got these today, I was pretty, I didn't actually look at it, and then when I was saying that and I looked down, it was 1,800 square feet, I was surprised. And I'll have to talk to him to see what changed and why that's
Right.
now the plan.
Why is he paving all this area back here?
I don't know, I don't know. It's drainage area, and I don't know why he needs to have that much pavement to get around, unless he's got big trucks coming through, but I'll ask that question.
Well, even if he wants access to this building, the pavement extends,
Yeah, he doesn't need to go all the way back there, I agree.
and he enters here, unless he's using it for storage of some sort, and we'd like to know what it is.
Or maybe just, loading materials into the building. Because it seems to me like what he might be wanting to do is build an identical building next to it in the future. And then he would actually probably use that for loading from the back. But is it the board's usual way to get information on what the next step's going to be, or to approve this as, because if his intention is to knock this existing building down after this subdivision and then reapply for another one, would it behoove us all to just know what he's going to be doing down the line and do it all at once? And
Right.
Is that what we normally do?
Interim site, I would say he would he would have to come back for a revised site plan, amended site plan application, or just a new site plan application. But if he does know what he's going to do, then it helps us a lot,
Right. I think it would help him a lot, too.
Exactly.
He's got an acre of paved area, you wonder why.
Because
Yeah.
he might be boxing himself in. It's the other thing, if he's not thinking about certain things,
Right.
requirements.
This was Lester Holden's, I would hope that they had addressed that during the process, but
Yeah.
I'll find out and.
If they're honest, they, it's just gonna keep that and it's fine.
all right, this goes back in the file.
You wanna mull it over a little bit and be able to get back to you with any other comments? I think that makes sense instead of, just leaving it at this.
Okay.
I think that really does make sense.
And in the
They can
meantime,
go through the code and so forth, and.
anytime I can talk to him about.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Wendy.
Do you, Kathy and Adler, do you both have sets?
I think we have a mishmash. I have,
Okay, here's another.
Subdivision and site plan.
we need a site plan.
Here's another one, right here, Kath.
Rooney, do you want these back?
Yes.
Do you want extra ones? Because we don't really need the files full of these things.
That concludes the regular
Okay, these
business.
are extra subdivision maps.
Is everybody okay moving the next meeting till Tuesday?
September
You need to make
3rd.
a motion to
Even on a pre-submission?
I think it's
take it out
early
of
on.
pre-submission and put it on the regular calendar.
Okay.
Well, if
We're not gonna have it Labor Day.
wait.
Didn't we
I'm
already
sorry,
move
can you
it?
Say that again?
We're talking about the present application should be.
This is in
resolution should be
pre-submission.
If
To
there is an
remove it to the
application.
regular calendar.
You're planning
We
on
have to make-
submitting an application?
We'll put an application, but I think we probably need.
So do we
to-
adjourn it for all purposes until they make an
I don't think you
application?
can do
Pre-submission, you don't have to
anything.
adjourn it.
We don't have to adjourn it. Okay.
Not formal.
So you haven't submitted an application yet?
No.
Okay.
This was, I have to do this first, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Are you okay with Tuesday?
I will, I'll call you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Are you okay with Tuesday?
Sure.
Warren?
Warren, you okay with changing the next meeting from Monday to Tuesday? Because
We better.
we better, he says.
It's on the calendar already, the village calendar,
Wait,
so I don't,
Are you talking about the work session or
No,
the?
the regular meeting.
The regular meeting.
Well, that's already been
I
done.
think it's.
Well, it says that we need to discuss it on here, so
But we did it already. Huh, okay, I'm
Sorry,
fine.
doing it
if
again.
it's
Might have been
done,
done before Memorial Day, did we do that?
it's,
Possibly.
Yeah, we
If
did
it's
that. at the
done, it's
beginning of the
done.
year.
Then it's done.
okay.
Okay.
We have some minutes to approve.
And I just wanted to just run, let me, before we do that, I'll show you something. This is that, this. And our minutes say this. Just make sure you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Any comments, changes, additions to the minutes from the June 24th work session, the July 1st regular session, or the July 29th work session? All good? I have a motion to approve those meetings in mass.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 24th, July 1st, and July 29th.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I'll
Aye.
second it.
Aye.
Bye. It's too late.
You're in.
So, the next meeting would be the August 26th work session. And with that, may I have a motion to close this regular meeting of the Village Planning Board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.